The global political and economic system is changing. Africa will have to adapt to the changes. Countries must push back against the marginalization of the continent. President Cyril Ramaphosa did not shy away from calling for a stronger and a united continental body.
Institutional reforms are not an event. They are a process. Every reform process does take its own time. Sometimes there are detours, sometimes there are stops and starts. But the important thing is that the reform process in the AU is going ahead. And the various heads of state are quite committed to ensuring that the reforms do proceed so as to make the AU much more effective, much more efficient in terms of the decisions that it has taken to be implemented. So our focus, therefore, should be the way in which the reforms are proceeding ahead. And of course, everybody wants the reforms to speed up, but some do take some time. But we are moving ahead with the reforms, and the AU is becoming sharper and it's becoming more modernized in the way that it works. And when you look at the way that the Assembly takes decisions, you can see that change is taking place, and that's what we need to be pleased about. Now,
he also responded to the speech delivered by the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, at a security conference in Munich. Many critics say the speech was promoting imperialism.
What we should be avoiding is a new form of colonialism, where those economies will now begin to target the minerals that they have. It is now time for Africa to do business on its own terms and to make sure that the decisions that we engendered at the G20 on how we treat our endowments, like particularly critical minerals, should be dealt with. It should no longer be a case where rock, soil, and dust is exported out of Africa without being beneficiated. Now, we have leverage, and as Africa, we must use that leverage. And without enforcing ourselves or imposing ourselves, we need to be saying, we need to act as one, collectively, and deal with the wealth that we have to the advantage of Africans. Hitherto, it has not been totally to our advantage. Other countries outside the African locale have gained great advantage. Now, the geopolitical situation, having changed as it is, requires us to be smarter and wiser and use the leverage that we have without being arrogant, without seeking to impose ourselves. And this is the time when, as Africans, we must act together.
On peace and security in Africa, the president called for a more inclusive approach to address the areas that have experienced conflicts, with the firm focus on South Sudan.
Countries such as South Sudan, Sudan, and the DRC are countries that are facing enormous challenges. We've just come out of a meeting now where we were discussing South Sudan, and we're pleased to say that the C5 committee of the AU, supported by IGAD, has just met and has taken decisions that we do believe will take the country forward. A clear roadmap is now being articulated. It's been said by the C5 and indeed IGAD that the elections in South Sudan should proceed. They should no longer be postponed, and that in itself is progress. And that there should be a ceasefire, and that the detainees should be released, and that the preparations for elections should now get underway with greater earnest. But what is important is that the AU, the C5, and the UN will support the process of preparing the country for elections, and they'll support South Sudan. The good thing is that President Salva Kiir himself was here together with his ministers, and they are all committed to a dialogue process that will lead to the consolidation of a consensus. And the revitalization agreement that they agreed to, is going to be the guide.
South Africa is chairing the AU High-Level Ad Hoc Committee on South Sudan. Sophie Mokoena, SABC News.